Robert A. Whelan, coach, track and football, 1959 through 1977. Track. Head coach for indoor and outdoor track, 1959 through 72. Multiple Bay State League and Greater Boston Track Championships. 112 wins and 24 losses in his 10-plus year career. Won 56 consecutive dual meet victories. Won 7 Massachusetts state titles. Named the Massachusetts Track Coach of the Year in 1968. Football. Coached football from 1959 to 1977. Varsity football head coach from 74 through 77. And coached first Natick High School Super Bowl team in 1974. And he was truly a great guy. I didn't know him from athletics, but I knew him from being in the halls at Natick High School. And I knew him from being a role model, and I knew him as a guy who just really cared and knew the names of all the kids and had something nice to say to all the kids, whether you played for him or not. And so to be able to induct him tonight is truly special. Accepting for Coach Whelan, his son Tim. You take a picture?
Robin, do you want to come up and do this? Actually, I've been watching American Idol a lot lately, so I was thinking of singing this. But, Thank you, Susan. On behalf of my family, just one second. I'd like to thank the committee for selecting my father to the Natick Athletic Hall of Fame. He would be proud. To paraphrase the fight song we are all familiar with, we're from Natick and no one could be prouder than we are of our dad. I'd also like to congratulate the other inductees, my biology teacher, Miss Levitt. I got all A's, right, Miss Levitt? And Coach Galani, who was my sophomore football coach, sophomore baseball. I remember my sophomore year, we had 130 kids on the sophomore football team. It was incredible experience. I think I was about 5th string linebacker at the time. But, and I'd also like to congratulate my brother Jeff and the 74 football team. I read the article Lenny Migliola wrote in Metro West about this year's recipients. When he mentioned my father, he wrote, and quote, "The beloved coach Bob Whelan," end quote, which meant a lot to us. My father loved Natick and the kids he taught and coached. He loved the other coaches and teachers that he worked with. They were among his best friends. He's being recognized tonight for his achievements as a coach, but as many of you in the audience know, he was more than that. Like any great coach, he was an educator and he was a motivator. He could teach sports because he had a great athletic career himself. He was in the Hall of Fame at Boston University. Was currently at New England College Football Awards are named in his honor, and every year, annually, the college coaches and players gather for the Bob Whelan College Football Awards night. He was a great motivator because he cared about the student athlete, the person. Following his untimely death in 1999, I can't tell you how many times, how many wonderful letters and comments our family received from former players who went into coaching because of him, or just wanted to tell us how much of an influence he was on their lives. He could be tough. Everyone remembers the coach or teacher that pushed you further than you thought you could go. For me, it was my dad. Football would end on Thanksgiving every year, and on Monday, track would start. We thought we were in shape from football. Forget about it. He would work us so hard that we were guaranteed to be physically sick every day for the first week. But that is why his track teams were so successful. He won multiple league titles and state titles because everyone on the team was in shape. As for my memories, I can't recall us talking in detail about what happened in athletic events, but I always knew he would be asking about classes and would always know when a big test was coming up. Even in college, when he was still coaching and couldn't attend many of my games, he would mostly ask two questions: how are your classes, and did you go to church? My father started teaching and coaching in Natick around 1960. I can still remember sitting in the freezing cold. I was 6, watching Natick lose for the first time in 19 years to Framingham. Walt Riniak, everyone called him Butch, was thrown out of the game for coming to the aid of a teammate. Surely if he had stayed in the game, we would have won by 20. The 60s were a simpler time, as many of you know. Football was the only game in town during the fall, and it seemed like the whole town was there at the games. I remember all the coaches' wives received chrysanthemums they wore at the Thanksgiving game. My brother and Bobby were lucky enough to stand on the sidelines and watch great players perform like Joe Pryor, Teddy Bracken, Timmy McIndoe, Paul Peters, Steve Gallant, Billy Pettingill. I could go on and on. The great coaches at the time were part of the town's fabric and character. Great men like Dan Bennett, John Carroll, Bob Galani, Sweet Benson, Fran Collins, Lou Colombo, and Charlie Christie. And a little later, Tom Lamb, who's the person who succeeded my father as the head coach. They were all tough but very fair. As our family grew to be the Jamas and Whelans, everyone was involved. The boys were playing and the girls were cheering or on the pep squad, whatever it took to support Natick. As our mother would tell you, just getting all 11 to school every morning was hysterical. On Saturday mornings, the air was filled with intensity, anticipation, and excitement. What type of person was my father? Unassuming, high sense of integrity, and at the same time, he had a great sense of humor. He used to love to play tricks on people with a track starter's gun. Not very PC today. Another time I remember during practice when we were running plays and all the gaps in the line between, if you had the gaps between the center and the guard and the tackle, they were all numbered, odd numbers on the left, even numbers on the right. And it was early in the year and one of our linemen, I remember, kept going the wrong way. Finally, my father ran over to the player. He said, "Why are you going to the wrong hole?" And the player didn't have an answer, and he said, "Give me an odd number." Without hesitation, the player said, 6. He never underestimated an opponent. We might be playing a team that was 0-8, and he would still look worried. He would always make a comment like, "Oh, they have a great running back that could beat us." He expected his players to exhibit great sportsmanship. For track meets, we used to take a bus from Natick to Boston and run at the old Commonwealth Armory, where the Agganis Arena is now. He would always stand up before we departed the bus and let everyone know that they were representing Natick, and he expected us to act like gentlemen. No monkey business. We were too afraid to get in trouble. Ralph Waldo Emerson once said, and I think this speaks to my dad's legacy, "The purpose of life is not to be happy. It is to be useful, to be honorable, to be compassionate, to have it make some difference that you have lived and lived well." Thank you.